King's College Hospital, London, last summer.
Do you think that the baby may be anemic today? The plan is to take a blood sample from the cord to check if the baby is anemic and then give it a blood transfusion. Okay? The way we would do that is by putting a very thin needle through your tummy, just there. If you watch the screen now, you can see the white line going down.
One of the world's great fetal surgeons prepares a blood transfusion to an unborn child.
It's almost finished now. Keep smiling.
It's one of the life-saving operations which has made King's a worldwide reputation.
Has he had all his injections up to date?
Yes. Yeah.
Has he got any cough?
Yeah, he has been coughing in fact quite badly.
Down in casualty, just as much care, but in conditions that threaten to destroy that reputation. The department is holding its breath. Any day now, a government inquiry is due to report on the deaths of 2 patients in casualty after being left hours without proper treatment. Get your act together. That's the message to King's from everyone, including local GPs.
People are saying is A&E has really got into trouble in the last year in a way that we have never recognised. We've never had such difficulties. And I think we've got, I mean, clearly that's a major issue for yourselves as managers. You're clearly looking at that. We've got to get it right.
The other thing is that when you refer people...
Hospital Chief Executive Derek Smith and his top managers hear local GPs reel off their complaints.
We're all faced with it. Patients are aware as well how difficult things are at the moment, and they're aware that they may well have to wait quite a long time if they come through casualty. So they're concerned. Everybody's concerned. And your registrars, the on-call people, they're also concerned. Everybody is. And at the moment, I think the thing that has been lost is that opportunity for...
Derek Smith puts a brave face on it. But behind closed doors, he's finding it difficult to take some managers with him all the way in the push to shake King's up.
I'm pretty daunted by this audit because even though we've said, well, we're doing all these things, we're really doing well. Looking at the organisational action plan, I think, to be quite honest, we're getting absolutely nowhere. And I'm really worried about it.
Preparation for the audit is beginning to exasperate some managers.
I mean, this great document that we had to work through, which is really a nightmare. One of the things that it actually asked is the direction of the organisation itself. We weren't really clear whether we'd got any real direction.
Some doctors are equally unhappy.
I mean, my reaction to this is, as you know, somewhat sceptical, and I'm concerned that we are spending time on this sort of thing when there's a whole other area of our work to be done as well. I mean, my reaction to this is that fine, we go through the process and we do what we've been told to do, if you like, but I'm just concerned that we don't spend enormous amounts of time doing something which, to be honest, I don't think is going to be really effective.
David Fry from the King's Fund, which is setting up the audit, is aware of the cynicism.
Are there any departments which haven't really taken it as seriously as you'd hoped?
I think it's fair to say yes, there are. I think my impression is that they've ticked boxes yes, and when I've asked them, do you really do it? The answer is, oh, actually, no, we don't. If that's what you're getting at, no, we don't do it.
Some people in King's don't seem to be taking the audit seriously.
It's early days. Most are taking it seriously. Inevitably, some people would be cynical about it. In this organisation, we generally pay people to think, so they'll make up their own minds up to a point. And they also have to learn what's going to happen with audit and what its impact is upon them. You have to get all the basics right, and the audit helps you to do that.
But some problems can't wait. Cardiovascular specialist John Martin has been given one: medical records.
Now, the first thing we need to do, what we did last time, was to go and actually look at the place, wasn't it?
Yes.
300,000 records are stored here.
What are all these here for?
Right, these are notes that have come back from various points throughout in the hospital. They're brought back on a daily basis. They're put in these trays.
More than a third of the files aren't here. Some are buried in doctors' out trays, others completely lost. Those here are often incomplete.
Okay.
These are what lovingly known as fat files. These are oversized files that won't fit into the normal bays. We've got special bays for them, but we've just got an overspill, and we're actually in the process of reorganising the filing bay.
Okay, but this is the guts of the problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I see the notice is still upside down.
No, yeah, we have a problem with the sellotape dries out.
Can we take it down in front of these? Now, I noticed that last time we were here, that there's the problem, for example. This looks like a positive danger, actually. If you look at the number of notes up there that are about to collapse onto the finder.
I mean, the reality of it, we know what it looks like, but the reality of it is that somebody goes in there, they physically get down on their knees, and they have to go through that lot, sometimes 3 or 4 times a day, looking for a set of notes. So that's the reality of it.
The message Martin will take back: it will take money to put the records right. More than £600,000 eventually.
How is it possible for anybody to find anything in here? And you're saying the fundamental problem is just lack of space, that there just isn't.
Yes, we simply cannot bring them all home to roost.
And the problem is getting worse and worse all the time, because as you cannot find things, you're creating more folders that go in beside the other folders. Yes. Those are lost, more new folders are created. Yes. And so the whole problem proceeds exponentially.
Elsewhere, the worry is too much space. Chief Midwife Jeanette Brearley and consultant Donald Gibb are checking King's dozen family planning clinics. Some are nearly empty.
How are you doing? Hello, hi. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good. How's the clinic this evening?
It's been very busy actually this evening. We've seen a lot of patients.
Right.
We're sort of just winding down now, but it's been actually a good clinic, so lots of problems.
How many ladies might you have seen, or how many couples?
Me personally?
No, in the clinic.
Oh, in the clinic, I think we've seen over 25. Well, the clinic.
Gibb and Brearley are unimpressed. The clinic is staffed to cater for twice that number.
So it's just a little bit of a lag time at the moment, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I don't normally do this clinic, but
right.
So I can't really sort of comment on that. Yeah. Okay.
Right. Okay.
The clinics cost £350,000. Gibb and Brearley hold the purse strings.
So although they say that there's been a lot of people seen there this evening, the waiting room is empty, and there's a number of people hovering around for an empty clinic.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's it's quite worrying, really, isn't it? I mean, it's quite nice that people get seen efficiently, and there isn't any waiting time. Sure. But it does make you wonder if we're quite as efficient as we ought to be, because there are actually 5 members of staff there, aren't there?
Yeah, and when we've just been 1 mile away, less than a mile away at Dulwich Hospital, and there's maybe 10 or 11 people being seen this evening down there.
Unless we can become radically more efficient, the number of patients that we treat will reduce, the cost per treatment will go up, and we'll be into a downward spiral where our services become
the pressure on everyone to cut costs increases. Julian Natal, Derek Smith's number 2, calls an emergency meeting.
And amazingly, even now, despite all the effort and the hard work in cleaning up our budgets, there is still a shortfall of just over £2 million. I think that's one of
that £2 million is past debts. But to balance the books and pay for vital improvements, King's needs to save 3 times that amount.
That then goes off to the supplies office.
Now, halfway through the year, Smith is told that some cost-cutting targets are proving difficult.
There's an underachievement on our programme of about 359,000. Now, if that was allowed to continue for the rest of the year, we could be looking at a problem of around £1 million. We're in trouble anyway because we're under great pressure to ensure that
There are 104 separate efficiency savings. They now have to write some of them off.
System. Within general services, for example, there was an intention to freeze 15 vacancies. To date, no savings have been achieved there. We've slipped by 38,000. There's potential slippage for the year there of 100,000. We're not achieving our savings on bed hire. We knew that was going to be difficult. We're not achieving those savings.
The manager asked to save £50,000 by hiring fewer special beds, says too many patients need them.
He thinks that he can pick up those savings can be achieved through other means.
The message for John is those savings must be achieved through other means. There's no question. He offered the bed hire. He said he thought he could do it. If he can't do it that way, he does another.
I mean, Karen actually thinks that that figure may be in fact.
As the senior managers here consider how to force through all these relatively small savings, a more savage option is given them. The outside management consultants that Derek Smith has brought in deliver their first written report. The consultants, still anxious to work discreetly, say that King's can save far more than the £5.5 million they're looking for. 8.6 million, in fact. But hospital managers are dubious.
I think it's fair to say that these are the first thoughts of the consultants. They include things like reducing the numbers of beds that we operate from. They're suggesting that we just operate more efficiently. It includes also a range of proposals to make reductions within areas like laundry, domestic services, and also within maintenance.
Insiders judge many recommendations impractical, especially closure of 90 of King's 800 beds.
That was predicated on the idea that we could reduce the length of stay across the board. Now, it's a nice idea, but we've had some experience of doing this before, and the truth of it is that while in theory you can propose that, in practice what happens is that the reduction in length of stay, which means a change in clinical practice, takes much longer. So we would find ourselves with too little space for too many patients. So we can't do that all in one go. But there are other proposals that they came up with which were very interesting.
Now today, this meeting is a special meeting. A collective grievance was taken out because of the steps that management took to abolish the bonus scheme and the way they wanted to abolish it. I'm here.
One of the Health Ex proposals, which Smith does say yes to, has the unions up in arms. Renegotiation of the bonuses paid to King's 800 ancillary workers.
If the management of this hospital continue to just talk about cuts, then we may well have to come to you and say that, you know, it rather looks as if there's nothing more that we can do around the negotiating table to prevent these cuts from going ahead. I guess that as a group of workers, you'll have something to say about that, and I guess that as a group of workers, you may well want to partake in some kind of action.
I think we would like the union to stand firm on it, that it does not agree for the bonus to go.
We are the one that doing the dirty work. We all stick together, go on strike, let they suck all of us or do the work themselves.
Can I have a few comments from the linen room, please? What is your situation? How do you feel?
I'll speak on behalf of the linen room. We are very unhappy at the moment. It's not the same anymore. You just come to work because you have to earn your money. But we have all lost interest working for Kings.
Midsummer, and a day King's has been dreading. The government report on the death of 2 patients in casualty 6 months earlier is published.
A report from the Regional Health Authority to the Secretary of State. Yeah, I've got a statement. Shall I fax that to you? We've been looking for a new accident and emergency department for years. I mean, you know the figures. It was designed for 30,000 and sees 80,000 a year.
Henry, running. Okay. Is it genuinely safe to come to this hospital?
It's always been genuinely safe for people to come to this hospital. We have an excellent accident service.
The report blames the management at King's for failing to sort out the long delays in casualty, which contributed to the 2 deaths.
Why did it take 2 inquests to actually produce the inquiry and to get something done? Why was the situation allowed to get so bad?
It didn't take 2 inquests, and it didn't take an inquiry. We were already working very hard to make underlying improvements to the way in which we were being able to admit patients to hospital. This has been a long-standing problem at King's. These were two very tragic events that followed one after another.
Ironically, lying in casualty unnoticed is a second government report, also just published. But this one, from the Audit Office, praises King's for pioneering the involvement of local GPs in casualty. GPs take turns treating patients here who should have gone to their local surgery in the first place. The media isn't interested in a report praising casualty, nor is it made privy to the latest evidence that casualty itself is not the real problem. Almost everybody here is now being monitored, patients and medics. The aim is to see how long patients spend in here, and more important, how long specialist doctors take to get here when they're needed. Some used to take hours, but now everyone is under instruction to give top priority to emergency patients, examining them and seeing them into a proper hospital bed.
The next bit of information you have is the time waiting in A&E for a bed. In week 1, 0 to 2 hours, 54%.
Yep.
2 to 4 hours, 30%, 4 to 6 hours, 14%, and only 1% over 6 hours in week 1.
Yep.
Right, okay. But really, it is the exception now.
It's a big improvement. Patients used to wait up to 20 hours or more. But this emergency committee hears that solving one problem is creating another.
A large number of medical emergencies are now being sprayed onto the orthopaedic wards. And we're also not placing our patients particularly rationally, as you pointed out the last day. So while we're getting the patients through A&E, we're doing it at the expense of using orthopaedic wards, at the expense of not really placing the patients in ideal wards in relation to who's looking after them.
In fact, right across the hospital, staff are complaining about patients being put in any bed that's available. In this neurological ward, they now have 6 other types of patient, marked in red on the ward information board. They're called outliers.
Cardiac patients, liver patient, chest patient, hematology patient, to name but a few. The patients are really being spewed out all over the place, so they're scattered throughout the hospital. At the moment, we've got 11 such patients on here, and this gentleman happened to be one of them. And it really means that it's increased our workload, and also trying to get care for the patients. It's quite difficult. The main pressure is actually getting the doctors to find to their patients when we want them. Because normally, the doctors who are what we'd call residents on here visit often, but the others, we have to find where they are.
You're getting bleeped constantly all day, simply because everybody is on different wards. And physically, you try and work out in your head a way of walking around these wards so you pick up all your patients, and you think, well, if I go from here and I go upstairs and I walk along and I go down, and you're walking miles, and your bleep's going all the time because the outliers don't really know where you are and don't feel they're seeing you.
Okay, well then, moving along the line, having got out of casualty, while it's improved, there's still quite a long way to go, but it has improved at the expense of not placing patients ideally, and also interfering with other specialties. I mean, orthopedics, Milo Thomas points out here that orthopedic workload is right down by about 15%, which a lot of which he attributes to medicine invading their beds.
The new headache forces the emergency committee in a different direction. They figures revealing big disparities in the times different doctors take before discharging patients from hospital.
Okay, on to discharge then. I have written around to care group directors to say that discharge planning meetings must be organised on a formal basis and must be consultant-led, and I'll have to get feedback on whether or not that's happening. But, you know, one gets the impression that ain't enough.
The committee decide to use their statistics to pressurise one particular department, where the doctors are said to keep patients in longer than others.
The length of stay in geriatrics has gone up dramatically.
The geriatricians are the target. Management statistics suggest they keep in elderly patients longer than others also treating old people. Longer, it's said, than in neighbouring hospitals like St Thomas's or Guy's. The committee decides to act.
What are we going to do, Caroline?
I think we have to have a radical dynamic change of how we...
Well, maybe we should take that on separately to this group, now that we've recognised there is a problem there.
I feel that there needs to be a fundamental message, particularly to services for elderly people, that they're now part of a whole different ballgame where there is competition for resources.
The language is muted. The implications for the geriatricians and for their patients too are anything but.
Their length of stay is about 29 days, which is actually longer than it has been in the past and is very long compared to our neighbours, which, I mean, we don't have any firm data on, but it looks very much as if they're significantly less, and in some cases half that length of stay. There's also a different way of working in that there's a mixture of all types of patients, acute, rehabilitation and continuing care on all our wards, where in other places they tend to stream patients.
But it is worrying.
It's very worrying because we have enormously limited bed capacity and we have, casualty with people waiting to come into beds. And basically, it's beholden to us to actually get people through and make beds for people waiting to come in casualty.
Management decides to move elderly patients out of King's to make way for casualty cases. The old people will go to a satellite hospital at Dulwich, which will act as a rehabilitation centre, while high-tech medicine concentrates at King's. The manager responsible knows that the geriatricians will hate it.
And I think that the care of the elderly people are unhappy about the prospect of having to look very seriously about using their beds solely to service casualty, which will actually mean they need less beds on this site. But that unpalatable as it may be, decision has to be made.
You wouldn't believe this. I walked on to Annie's aunt's, first day back from leave, and Anita says, "And when's the ward closing?" And I was absolutely...
The geriatricians are furious.
Well, I didn't know what to say, because I don't know anything about this ward closing business. I mean, before I went away, there were bits and pieces of rumours about, well, the admissions group or something. What's been going on?
Well, it's ludicrous. The admissions, the A&E group, have decided that the solution to patients backing up in A&E is to move at least one of our wards, if not both of our wards, to Dulwich, and they think that's going to solve the problem. Just completely, I'm gobsmacked by the whole thing. They've systematically underprovided occupational therapy and physiotherapy at Dulwich over the last year or two. And we know that if we move more patients to Dulwich, things will silt up, but they haven't realised that. And what's worse is that they have accused us of providing an inadequate service. They've said that our duration of stay, compared with the over 75s looked after by medicine, are twice as long. And they've completely failed to grasp.
Oh, now that's clearly the selection business.
And not
it's
only
very easy to look after some over 75s, and it's very difficult to look after the other over 75s. And the medical registrar takes his pick in casualty of the ones that he sees as easy and refers the others to us. That's easily explained on the selection basis.
I mean, for example, Guy's Hospital. I am not convinced that they've compared like with like.
I agree.
And it's completely inappropriate to criticise us for providing a service by comparing with data that's not comparable. They operate a completely different system.
I don't think this isn't a perfect solution. This is just what we can do with what we've got.
So is it going to be a ferocious few weeks?
I think it's going to be very difficult. I think there are going to be a lot of very unhappy people, and I think we just have to work through it. And I think the next 6 months are going to be very difficult until we come to some resolution about the way we can go.
Late summer, and few things seem to be going right for Derek Smith.
That's the actual one they've chosen to put out.
The hospital is being disrupted by attempts to sort out casualty. The efficiency drive is faltering. There is open criticism of the management audit. But Smith says that it's change or die.
This is a difficult place to run. It's a tough billet. And you have to recognise that things won't always go right. But we have to do it. The death that would be contemplated is not, in fact, a complete death. What would happen is this. It's at two different levels. Either one, very slowly, by attrition, you cave inwards, which I think would be unlikely because we wouldn't be allowed to do that. Or secondly, we become the District General Hospital for, as it were, Brixton, Peckham and associated districts, which from the point of view of the local population would be fine. But from the point of view of the rest of the institution, it would be a disaster.
Next week, the tide of misfortune begins to turn.